The late summer sun bore down mercilessly on the rural stretch of Highway 82. The kind of road that whispered stories of hard work and weathered boots. Along that stretch walked an old man with stooped shoulders, a wide-brimmed straw hat casting a shadow over a face darkened by years in the sun. His name was Elias Romero, a lifelong farmer from Rosefield County, and the dust on his boots carried the weight of honest labor, not shame. The straps of his canvas overalls were faded and frayed. His flannel shirt clung damply to his skin, a mixture of sweat and soil marking the creases of every fold. His hands rough, strong, and cracked swung steadily at his side. Elias had spent the morning checking on his modest soybean fields. But now his boots treaded unfamiliar territory, the glass-fronted showroom of Bradford Machinery, a luxury tractor dealership gleaming in sterile precision. He paused at the edge of the parking lot, squinting up at the chrome signage above the sliding doors. It seemed almost sacrilegious to step into such opulence with grime still under his fingernails. But Elias had never been one to shrink away from a task. His son, Christian Romero, a founder and CEO of Romero Agritech, a billion-dollar agricultural machinery corporation, had asked him to drop by a few locations unannounced. Christian wanted to see if the company's brand was living up to its values, to find out whether customers, especially those from humble means, were being treated with dignity. So Elias, father of the man whose name was now etched into industrial history, agreed without protest. Christian didn't tell his staff who would be coming. That was the point. When Elias pushed open the doors to the showroom, a blast of cold, conditioned air hit him square in the chest. The interior gleamed with polished tile floors, fluorescent lighting, and metallic beasts of machinery lined up like soldiers on parade. The tractors were massive, sleek, and intimidating machines that could turn any stretch of earth into a goldmine of productivity. And yet, amidst this world of innovation and chrome, Elias felt more alien than he ever had before. He stepped slowly into the space, pausing to let the door swish shut behind him. His boots echoed with every step. The contrast between his appearance and the environment was stark, almost cinematic. Heads turned. Whispers stirred. A receptionist glanced up from her desk and blinked twice, as though unsure if he was a customer or a maintenance worker who had entered the wrong door. Behind a display of precision planters stood a young man in a tailored blazer. Marcus's name stitched onto a black name tag was tall, stylish, and brimming with confidence. He leaned on the display, tapping something into his phone, then looked up and saw Elias. A flicker of confusion crossed his face, then a smirk. Marcus approached with a practiced stride and a smile that felt more like a performance. "Good afternoon, sir," he said, voice syrupy with sarcasm. "Looking for someone?" Elias shook his head. "Just browsing. Thank you." Marcus's smile tightened. He glanced down at Elias's overalls, then at the mud-specked soles of his boots. "Of course," he said slowly. "We have some entry-level attachments in the back if that's more your speed." Elias didn't react. He simply turned away and began examining one of the smaller tractors near the entrance. It was a solid mid-range model, nothing fancy, but dependable. He studied the instrument panel with quiet interest, letting his fingers glide across the steering wheel like a pianist reacquainting himself with a beloved song. Behind him, Marcus made no attempt to hide his disdain. He chuckled under his breath and returned to the counter, mouthing something to another employee. She looked over at Elias, then giggled behind her hand. Elias had seen that look before many times. At farm supply stores when he had to pay in coins. At banks when he showed up to inquire about a loan. It was the look of people who believed dignity was something you could purchase at the same place you bought Gucci shoes or BMWs. He walked on, examining the lineup with sincere admiration. These machines were marvels. He could see the subtle improvements, improved hydraulic systems, noise reduction features, ergonomic seating. Machines built by engineers who had grown up on farms and knew what mattered most. That was Christian's doing. He built the company for people like Elias. But here, in this room, no one cared who he was. 20 minutes passed. No one offered him assistance. No one asked if he had questions. One employee even stepped aside as he walked past. as though dirt might leap off his clothes and onto her pressed slacks. It wasn't until he approached a top-tier Modila state-of-the-art, fully autonomous tractor with touchscreen integration and GPS-guided plowing that Marcus reappeared. "Now that," Marcus said, gesturing dramatically, "is a beast. But I doubt that's what you're here for." Elias looked up from where he stood beside the enormous front tire. "And why is that?" Marcus shrugged. "No offense, sir, but those machines start at $500,000. Not exactly something you'd find on a family farm." Elias studied him quietly. "It's a nice piece of engineering." "Sure is," Marcus said. "But let me take you to something more approachable. Maybe a pre-owned utility model? We've got a couple in the warehouse with good bones." Elias said nothing. He simply walked past the young salesman and continued toward the back, where the newer models were displayed under glass panels. He didn't have the heart to say it out loud, but his son had designed that very tractor Marcus claimed was too good for him. It had been inspired by Elias's suggestions after a particularly brutal harvest. As he leaned in to examine the panel interface, he caught fragments of conversation behind him. "He smells like cow manure." Someone whispered, "Is he even a real farmer? Looks more like a hitchhiker." You'd think he'd at least try to dress decent if he wanted to be taken seriously. Elias didn't turn around. His face remained neutral, but a part of him deep, quiet, and wounded stirred. A few moments later, he made his way toward the exit. He had seen enough. As he reached the glass doors, a voice called out behind him, "Sir?" He turned. It was an older man, mid-50s. Silver hair and deep lines etched into his brow. His name tag read Lewis. "I just wanted to apologize," Lewis said, stepping closer. "I saw how you were treated. That's not how we do things here. At least, it's not how we should." Elias gave a small nod. "Appreciate that." Lewis hesitated, then added, "You have a calm way about you. Mind if I ask your name?" "Elias. Elias Romero." The silence that followed was deafening. Lewis blinked. "Romero? You wouldn't happen to be related to Christian Romero?" Elias smiled faintly. "He's my son." The shift in energy was instant and absolute. Lewis's face drained of color. Behind him, Marcus, who had been scrolling on his phone, froze. His head jerked up. The other employees, who had barely noticed the interaction before, now stared with wide eyes. "You read Christian Romero's father?" Marcus stammered, his voice now 2 octaves higher and trembling with panic. "I am." The words were simple, undeniable, and heavy with consequence. Lewis turned to face the showroom. "Everyone," he said loudly, "this man is Mr. Elias Romero, father of the founder of Romero Agritech. I suggest you all reflect on how you treated him." Marcus's mouth opened, then closed. His hands twitched at his sides, like he was deciding whether to speak or disappear entirely. "Sir, I had no idea," Marcus mumbled. "If I had known." Elias cut him off gently. "And if I hadn't been? If I was just another old man who needed help?" Marcus fell silent. Elias stepped forward, brushing his hand lightly across the fender of the high-end tractor. "You build machines to help people work better. But respect, that's not something you engineer. That's something you live." No one moved. 10 minutes later, Christian Romero entered the building. He had been in the adjacent office space reviewing security footage when Lewis had texted him. When he walked into the showroom, the atmosphere was deathly still. Christian didn't smile. His eyes swept the room until they landed on Marcus. "You failed," he said quietly, but firmly, not just as a salesman, as a human being. Marcus looked like he wanted to vanish. Christian turned to the rest of the staff. "This company was built on my father's back. His work, his sacrifices. If you cannot treat someone like him with respect, Tanny, with respect, you don't deserve to wear that name on your chest." No one dared respond. Christian turned to Elias, giving him a respectful nod. "Thanks for doing this, Pop." Elias gave a small, approving grunt. Plenty to think about. As they walked out together, shoulder to shoulder, the sun still blazed outside, but Elias didn't feel the weight of it anymore. He had walked into that building alone and unseen. He left with every eye watching, not just the man, but the lesson that walked beside him. And that lesson was clear: never judge a person by the dirt on their boots. Some of the most powerful men carry no title, only honor.